Hi guys, thanks for clicking on the video today. My name is Elliot Forbes and this is episode 27 of Men's Grooming Weekly. If this is the first time you're watching any of my videos, this channel is dedicated to hair, beard, grooming tips for the modern man, and now ASMR style videos as well. So Men's Grooming Weekly is a weekly show where I try a new product, we talk about my favourite hair icon of the week, and I answer one of your questions from TikTok. But first, my favourite TikTok from the last week. I don't know, you tell me, am I a wizard? Now, Connor is one of my really good friends. We've been friends since we were 3. This was a funny thing. Somebody had made a comment about me being a wizard, so I decided to buy a little outfit from Amazon, put it on, and just have a little bit of fun. And now onto the first part of the show, and this week's product of the week is actually a double whammy. We've got 2 products this week, and they're actually both from L'Oreal, and they're both part of the Techni art range. So these are much more for like the professional range, so something you'd see like session stylists using on set, on any sort of brand or magazine shoots. And the first part is the List Control Cream. Now I've used this quite a bit over the last couple of years. I've really enjoyed it. It's much more of a pre-styler. It's a smoothing cream, so with my cowslick enables it to blow dry into the place so it gets that nice smoothness coming across. But also this works amazingly well on curly hair. You can put this in, diffuse, dry it into it, and it just helps to bring those curls out, almost gives it like a nourishing look to it. It's very lightweight, but does give it a bit of body and something that, and just a very small amount of hold. If your hair gets a little bit out of control, if you find that when your hair gets humid, the hair goes wild, this is great to put in before you put some product in. It helps just to control it a bit more. The finishing product I've used is the depolished paste. Now when working this into the hands, it comes out really creamy, but then as soon as you put it into the hair, it almost turns really into a paste. It dries down very quickly. I've loved the texture, loved the definition that it's given, but it's not really heavy at all. I can very easily just run my hands through it, play with it nice and easily, but still feel like it's going to be put back into its place really nicely as well. And obviously because they're both on the more expensive side, the ingredients in there are very nice. They smell just very neutral. There's nothing really too offensive with them. I think this paste would work well on a lot of different types of hairstyles. I think you could use this on wet, dry it into the hair, and then also use this on a finishing product as well. It's very matte, and to be honest, this is an absolute win for me. I love it. And this week's hair icon is someone who a lot of people have asked for, and it's Cristiano Ronaldo. And I think with him being like the most followed person on Instagram, it only makes sense to have him featured as a hair icon, doesn't it? Even if I don't agree with all of his hairstyles. But in at number 5 is this look from when he was at Man United. There were some very questionable looks at that time, but I actually think this works really nicely. Just pushed up and over, a little bit of blonde highlights, embracing the curl through the top bit, and a nice silhouette to it. In at number 4 is this much more groomed look. I think he's probably had his hair chemically relaxed here, so that it can sit nice and straight. As you can see, it's much more of a matte look. Normally it goes really greasy, but I think it's so important just to be able to mix it up with products and go for different styles. In at number 3 is this look where he's got a real nice tight fade on the sides, a lovely boxy shape through the top, embracing the curls, nothing too contrived, and just a little bit of product. In my opinion, looks really expensive. And in number 2 is this fairly recent look. Now actually I think this looks great on him. Nice and tight faded through the sides. I think the silhouette with it being longer at the front, shorter towards the back works really well on him. Again, this has a real expensive look to it compared to a lot of the older ones where you see him, and a lot of them have a very cheap look to them. They may be executed well, but also it's more like, in my mind, a much more of a cheaper looking haircut. But I think this looks amazing. And in number 1 is this look which I think is quintessential Cristiano Ronaldo. When I think of him, it's something like this where he's had it shaved in and sort of a greasy look on top. This one is nice because it hasn't gone so short, so high up. They've kept much more of a squarer shaping through the sides. The razor isn't super aggressive, super sharp. Having just a little bit of volume in there, I think it brings his face really nicely. I think having just that little bit of volume in there makes his face feel not so square, not so much of an absolute block. Love this look. I think it's great on him. And this week's question is, what are the differences between fades? Now, this is really quite a hard subject to talk upon because in the barbering and the hairdressing industry, there's no standardized terms of what a haircut is in terms of, oh, that's a skin fade or that's a taper and not a fade. It's very much up to the person and up to interpretation with it. So a lot of this is based on what I would consider these things to be called. Now, a skin fade is where you take it all the way down to skin. So where you would use foils at the very bottom or you would use a razor. Generally, you at the start, what you do is use the mini trimmers. That would take it down to a 00. And then just underneath that is then where you'll take it down to skin. Where that first line goes, though, depends on how high you want the fade to be. Generally, if you just went into a barbershop and said, I would like a skin fade, the line would tend to be from around the mid-length, going around and just dropping down towards the back. If you want more of a lower fade, then you would go then into just by the ear and that sort of length. If you wanted a high fade, then obviously you would go a lot higher at the start with the skin. Now, obviously, there's lots of different looks within that. If you go for a high fade, then the fade is going to be done over a very small space. So it's going to go from light to dark very quickly. If you were to go with a more of a lower fade, then you can really stretch that out and really drag it so the transition goes from light to dark over a real big space. So it very much looks blurry. But also with that, if you were to go on the lower side, you can actually do the fade over a very small space, but then keep some weight in through that top area as well. So this can almost push forward or push back. back as well. If you were to ask for a 0 fade, they would put that initial guideline in with the 0 on the main clippers. A 0 on the main clippers, I think that's about 0.4 millimeters, and then you would fade that up. Obviously, the same thing then occurs as to whether you want it low, medium, or high. And if you wanted a 0.5 fade, that would be 1.5 millimeters it starts from. Generally, if you're asking for a fade, the longest which you could start from would be a 1. Because if you were to start at 1.5, it wouldn't really look like a fade too much then. It would very much look as though it was just that one length going up. Something that's come into fashion over the last couple of years is a skin taper. Now, I would consider a skin taper to be something in around the sideburn area and in at the very nape area. So you'd basically do a skin fade over a very short space of area in through here and just at the very back, then going into much more of a length in through here. So you might have, say, a 4 on the back and sides, but a skin taper, so it fades, so it keeps all that density in through here, but goes super tight in through the very bottom. That also allows for much more of a pushback look. You can keep some real length, really push that back, but have a skin taper here, skin taper at the back. If you then ask to other barbers and said, oh, I want a taper, generally that just means shorter around the edges. So what I would say is I would try and find a picture of the type of fade that you want and bring that in, because then that really shows what the actual look that you're trying to go for is. I wouldn't necessarily say, oh, that person's got a 1 fade, I want a 1 fade, because also a 1 on someone will look very different to a 1 on someone else. If I did a 1 on my hair but then did it also on my brother, mine would look very dark, but his would look very light because the hair density is different. And obviously you also then really need to take into account the head shape with that. My head shape really dips in towards his back area. So if I take the 0 or the skin up way too high, I lose completely all of the shaping through the crown. It looks awful on myself. I have to make sure that the 0 line drops way down as opposed to it going in a straight line. So a good barber will be able to advise you on that, but I would make sure, try and take some photos of the actual fade that you want rather than asking for, say, a 0 fade or a skin fade until you know that that's the actual look that you want. Okay guys, thanks a lot for watching today. If you have any questions at all, if you have any feedback, please feel free to drop a comment down below or send me a DM on any of my socials. This beautiful barbershop, which I am currently talking in, is open for a booking. So if you want a haircut, if you want a beard trim or a shave, I'm based in central London every week. So get yourself booked in. Thanks a lot for watching today, guys. Have a brilliant rest of your day. Much love, Elliot. Boom, chicka, wow, wow. Also, what does everyone think of this new look? So I've turned all the lights off. I've got my light that's coming in there, the softbox. What does everyone think? It looks a bit more I'm quite liking this actually. I think it's a bit more moodier behind, isn't it? You can show a bit more of the plants. What I'm thinking is maybe putting like a light in here so it just pops that a bit more. You can see a bit more of that flower in there. I feel like I need to maybe move it so that I am in the way of that door to block that out, because I don't really like having that door in. And I like showing all this off and it looks quite good, doesn't it? But what does everyone think of it? Let me know.